Hello everyone, I am Radha from Department of English, and in this video lecture I am going to talk about the story An Astrologer's Day by R.K. Narayan. As a part of the course in reading and writing skills, you get this story in the Unit 5 of your course. So, first of all, I would like to talk about the author R.K. Narayan. Now, R.K. Narayan is a famous Indian English writer who, now you see his picture here, and this is about him. So, he was born on 10th October 1906 and died in 13th May 2001. And he was an Indian writer born in Madras, and he is well known for his contribution to the growth and development of English short story as well as novel, and he is recognized both at the national and as well as international level. Now, these stories have definitely enriched Indian English literature. Now, all his stories are set in an imaginary town called Malgudi, and all the characters and the events in the story are related to the small town called Malgudi. So he uses the technique of tragicomedy. He employs a narrator in all his stories, and there is a humorous description which is invested with wit and satire, and he also tries to depict the life's grim struggles and the triumphs, and he enriched his stories with an underlying sense of stability and also continuity. Now, his stories are famous for the unexpected ending at the end. Okay. Now, today we are going to deal with this story called An Astrologer's Day. Now, this Astrologer's Day is a short story. You can consider it as a suspense thriller. It deals with a nameless protagonist, and it describes a day in the life of an ordinary but also a fake astrologer. Now, as I said, the setting is in the town called Malgudi. This is an imaginary town. It is not a story of contemporary times, but this story is dated into the pre-independence time. Now, when the beginning of the story, you can divide the story into three parts. The first part of the story describes the appearance of the astrologer. The second part of the story describes the past life of the astrologer and how he manages his business or his profession. Now, as I said, he is a fake astrologer. How he lures his customers, how he talks to them, and how he makes shrewd guesses is described in the second part of the story. In the last part of the story, you are going to see an encounter of the astrologer with a strange customer, and what happens in the end is the suspense in the story. So in the first part of the story, the astrologer begins his day at midday, that is at noon time. He sits under a tamarind tree. Now it's a footpath which is known as the Hall Park Road. Now, all the equipment which the astrologer has is he has certain professional equipment like cowrie shells, charts, palmyra writing, etc. And his appearance also is very attractive. Now, he tries to make himself very attractive or prominent by using sacred ash on his forehead. He also puts some vermilion. His eyes assume a prophetic light because of his search for customers. He also wears a saffron turban, and he presents himself so perfectly that he becomes a point of attraction to all the people who are going on the road. Now, he sits. The next point in this story is the location and the lighting of the place. Now, there are no municipal lights. Okay, so the whole place is lit by different lights which are burnt with kerosene, etc. Okay, lanterns. Okay, then he sits beside a groundnut vendor. So the flare which comes out from the groundnut heap is only light which falls where he sits there. Now in this light he conducts his business. So here the astrologer is now about the profession of the astrologer and his character is revealed by the way he deals with the customers. The astrologer is a very clever person and he has a working knowledge of, he doesn't know any astrology. He does not know anything about the customer's fate, as does he know about himself. So there is a description of his past. The astrologer actually abandoned his native place and he was actually a farmer. He would have lived and died there as a farmer. But he did not even expect to become an astrologer. But for some reason, he left his native village and then he came to this town, which is almost 200 miles away from his native place. And he did not stop or take rest until he reached this town. Okay? So, when we look at the profession of the astrologer, he made foolish guesses. First of all, he did not talk for some time. He allowed his customers to talk, and then from their own, from the information which they give, he tries to make certain guesses and he comforts them with good advices. And he had a working knowledge of human problems such as marriage, money, and relationships. Now he put certain interesting questions which are in a way very general. He talks about as soon as a customer came and sat before him, he would say, "You are now troubled. You are in some kind of trouble," or something like that. "A woman is troubling you." The third one is, "You are a very stubborn man. Outwardly you look very stubborn, but inwardly you are a very soft person." So like this he tried to attract the customers and tried to give them some comfort through his prophecies. Now this is the general background of the astrologer, his appearance and also his profession. Now when you come to this day, okay, the day comes to an end. When the groundnut vendor blew out his light, he also packs up his equipment and tries to leave home. But suddenly a shadow falls on the astrologer and he looks up and he sees a customer. He invites this man to come and know his fortune. So for this, the customer puts his hand to the face of the astrologer and challenges his abilities and asks him if he could answer his questions, and if he is satisfied with his answers, he would give him 8 annas. But if the astrologer fails, if he is unable to answer his questions, he must give him double the amount. So at last there is a bargaining, and after some time they finalize a deal between them. So when the astrologer prays to the heaven, and then he tries to talk to the talk to the customer, saying that there is a woman in your life. And as soon as he says that, the customer stops him. Okay? And he asks him to tell him and to stop all that nonsense and talk to him properly. Then suddenly he lights a cheroot. The customer sits down and then he tries to lit his cheroot. Now in the light of the matchstick, the astrologer sees the face of the customer, and suddenly the astrologer becomes panicky. He becomes nervous and he says, ask the customer to come the next day, and he would not tell him anything. But then the customer catches hold of his hand and tells him that he is not going to leave him unless he gets his answers. So unwillingly the astrologer shivers but accepts the challenge. So then he asks the customer, he says to he prays once again, and then he tells to the customer that he was left for dead in the past and that a knife had passed once in his chest. As soon as the astrologer says these two things, then he says the customer was left dead, okay, and a knife passed through his chest. the customer loses all his stubbornness and then he becomes excited. Okay, and then he says he was left for dead in a well. A passerby rescued him. Okay, after he got it wounded, he was thrown into a well nearby. So when he listens to this, the customer is attracted to the words of the astrologer. So then he asks him, he was in search of the culprit who had tried to kill him. And he asked the astrologer whether he would be successful in his search or not. Then the astrologer calls him by his name. He calls him Guru Nayak. As soon as he calls him Guru Nayak, the customer whose name is Guru Nayak is so amazed. So he asks him, "Do you know my name?" Then the astrologer says, "As I know everything else, I know your name also." And then he tells Guru Nayak. Okay, he tells him that his village is 2 days journey from this town. So he wants him to go back to his home forever and never to travel south again. He tells him that the culprit has died 4 months ago. So he asks him to leave for his hometown and never return again. Okay, at this the man is very disappointed that he couldn't kill the culprit with the man who murdered him tried to murder him with his own hands. And at least he asks him what kind of death he faced. The astrologer says that the culprit was crushed under a lorry. He died in a very worst way. So now the astrologer is satisfied. The astrologer satisfies him by informing that he was crushed under a lorry, and then he takes the money from Guru Nayak, and then he winds up his business, his belongings, and returns home. His wife is waiting at the doorstep, and she is worried. She asks him an explanation. At this, he gives her all the coins and asks her to count it. The wife is excited because she wants to buy. She hasn't seen so much money, so she wants to buy some jaggery and coconut for her daughter because the child has been asking for to make some sweets. So the astrologer looks worried. Then he is not happy like his wife. Okay, so then his wife asks him, "Why are you so worried?" Later, after they have their dinner and he is sitting on the mat, he explains to his wife. Now he shares the secret of his life with his wife. So far, he says to his wife, "So far I was worried that I had the blood of a man on my hands. But now I am relieved because that man is alive." And then he tells his wife, "Why do you think that I came here and married you and settled down as a astrologer? It was because I had a fight with a man. After drinking and gambling, they got into a quarrel, and he was angry, and in the drunken state, he stabbed Guru Nayak and left him for dead. He ran away from his native town and reached Malgudi and settled down as a astrologer and married this lady and got a child. So now he is relieved. Now his wife is shocked at this revelation. But then he tries to ask some questions more. He ran away from his village due to the fear of being accused as a murderer. He settled in Malgudi and married and decided he would never return back to his native village. So the person who tried to kill Guru Nayak is the astrologer himself. So he was able to identify the name of Guru Nayak and was also able to tell him what happened to Guru Nayak because he was the murderer. So this was something which he did in his youth. But even then, what you understand about the astrologer is that he is not a professional astrologer. He is a fake astrologer. He is leading a life of hiding. Okay, he actually had a murder on his hands, and he deceived Guru Nayak 2 times. Once he betrayed his friend. As a friend, he tried to kill him, and the second time he also deceived him by telling him that the person who murdered him was already dead. Okay, now there is one thing in this story. Okay, that is the astrologer though he tried to commit murder, he did not kill Guru Nanak. And now Guru Nanak is satisfied because he won't take revenge, because the person who killed him also died. So the astrologer saved himself by using the trade of his, the tricks of his profession, and he had a peaceful life later on. This is how, this story shows how we make the decisions that we make in our life. So what kind of unpredictable twists and turns which life takes in our which happens in the course of our life. So thank you very much.